Hello everyone, and welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews, the show where I review stuff that's mostly pretty good and maybe one of the best movies of all time, or a film that absolutely sucks and should remain in the depths of hell. Now, last week we obviously discussed Spider-Man 3, which is obviously going to be, or was, the worst one out of the Raimi trilogy, but I still had high hopes for the following film that would breathe new life into the Spider-Man franchise, that being The Amazing Spider-Man, released in 2012. Now, I'm not gonna do this like a usual, just by myself sort of thing. I have someone else with me who is pretty big into the Spider-Man franchise, and he is the one and only Matt Games YT. So say hello.
Yo, what's up, guys? I am very glad to be here, and yeah, yo, Russell, yo, thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. So before we get on to to our review of the Amazing Spider-Man, I feel like that it would be a little appropriate to kind of give Matt's thoughts on the original three Spider-Man films by Sam Raimi to kind of give more, I guess, purpose to why he feels about certain things in this continuity. So why don't we start off with the original Spider-Man from 2002? So what do you think about the first real serious interpretation of the character in live action, I should say?
Um, so for my opinion for Spider-Man One, the 2002, I thought it was really good for the start. For Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I obviously loved Tobey Maguire, one of my favorite actors. That actually played Spider-Man. Um, and yeah, I mean, he just does such a good job playing as Peter Parker. Um, and yeah, like I have so much like nostalgic moments with this movie a lot. Um, and yeah, like I think just him being as Spider-Man in general, really good. I think for the 2002. But I think the first movie though in general, like it's like just a really good start off to the trilogy, I would say.
Yeah. So I do agree with that, and like I said in my review, it was really one of the only Marvel films I watched for a very long time until
Yeah.
about a year or two ago when I was like, you know what, let me broaden my horizons a bit. I'm still a DC kid myself, but I still do appreciate what Marvel did, where DC kind of did wrong. Um, but yeah, so let's move on to Spider-Man 2, which is arguably the best out of the Raimi trilogy, and I
Yep.
personally, I still love it to this day. Yes, it has some very cheesy moments, but that kind of works on its charm. But what did you think about Spider-Man 2?
Now, okay, so now Spider-Man 2. It's a masterpiece. I really love it a lot. I would say it's definitely the best out of the trilogy. It's even better than the first one, I think, because it really shows what Spider-Man slash Peter Parker has to like deal with as a superhero. I mean, I think in one of the scenes in the very beginning, um, like he has to deliver the pizza, um, and he just has so much to do in his life, and that really just shows how Spider-Man really is. And I think the villain with Doc Ock as well by I believe Alfred Molina,
Hmm.
really good for Doc Ock. I really love him a lot, and yeah, it was so great seeing him in No Way Home as well, which we will at a later date.
Hmm.
But yeah, he portrayed Doc Ock really good, and yeah, I just think that in Spider-Man 2, it was a masterpiece. Loved it a lot.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. I think that Alfred Molina is not as cookie of a villain as Willem Dafoe was in the original, but I
Yeah.
feel like that
Uh
kind of
huh.
worked in its
Yeah.
charm, where it basically you had your kind of wacky kind of villain for the first one. They were kind of testing the waters on that, whereas this film they were like, okay, we kind of need like more of a serious film, but have kind of like that comedy edge about him. And yeah, I do think that Alfred Molina does a very good job with the role. And yeah, I think that overall,
Yep.
yes, I do agree. Is an absolute masterpiece. Is it my favorite superhero movie? No, but it is a fantastic movie that I do feel like that everyone should watch. Now we move on to
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3, which obviously, if you guys saw my review, that was the first time I was actually watching it. So I was going into it with the mindset of this is gonna be Batman and Robin level shit. But surprisingly, I actually the overall thing that I have a problem with the film is that it feels like that it's a story about three characters, and yet they bloated it up to like 5 or 6 main characters, where it it shouldn't have been that, and it just feels like it was
Yeah.
too complex, and like I said, like too many characters in it. But overall, I think that it's a pretty good Spider-Man movie, but it's just hindered by you know like like too many characters, too many cringy scenes. Need I mention emo Peter? Like I think that should go as a given. But if you can ignore that and ignore all the cringy ass scenes between Peter and MJ, I think you have a really good Spider-Man movie. It's just that I can't really, you know, say like, oh, I can ignore the emo Peter shit. I can ignore the cringy ass romance between Peter and MJ. It just kind of really hinders the movie for me. But what did you think about Spider-Man 3?
Okay, now Spider-Man 3. Here's the thing. I've watched Spider-Man 3 a lot, and I watched it a lot back in back in the day too. So I mean, to me, it's not that bad to me, but I could see like where you're going with like all the different characters that they added in, because I know in the movie we had like three villains, I believe, which was Harry Osborn,
Mm-hmm.
the new Goblin. We also had Sandman,
Yeah.
and we had Venom
Yeah.
slash Eddie Brock. If they only made, I feel like if they only made maybe just one villain,
Yeah.
maybe like Sandman, could probably be a good movie.
Yeah. Like I feel like that it could
Um,
be at least on par with the
could have been
first
better.
one. At least.
Yeah,
But yeah, I feel like that the whole thing where Harry was kind of tied up at the end of the second movie. Okay, yeah, like you finally have him accepting that, Peter wasn't his father's killer. But that is just so
yeah,
shoehorned into the plot of the third one that you could really just cut that out and nothing would be missing. And then, yeah,
yeah,
Venom was. I mean, I went about it in the review where basically it was just Sony executives that was just like, we need Venom in this movie. And it's like, now you're just fucked in now because it could have been a good story with Sandman and then Harry as like a secondary villain, kind of like Spider-Man 2. But
yeah,
they pushed Venom so hard where Sandman gets sidelined and then you kind of forget about Harry until like 30 minutes before the movie ends. It's like, oh, yep, he has his memories back and he just says, screw you, Peter. And
yeah,
then the fucking butler comes in, just says, "Oh yeah, I had this. I mentioned this in the review where I was just like, yeah, the expeditional character where he comes in with this piece of information that you could have told him any other fucking time, but you just had to tell him
yeah,
now."
yeah.
And it's just like,
That's the one thing that I was like, why? Out of all the times you could have told them about that,
it
but
was
you
it was at
just
that
decided
moment that
to
you were
tell
just like,
them
"Oh
right
yeah,
now.
yeah, Spider-Man, he's not your father's killer." And it's like, bitch, why didn't you tell me that like last movie? So yeah,
I know.
but I think Harry's is the weakest overall because it's just like, okay, he has amnesia and you see him like on and off throughout the movie, and then like I said, yeah, halfway like 30 minutes before the movie ends, you finally get his memories back, and then yeah, he finally gets told that Peter Parker or that Spider-Man was not his father's killer. And he's like, you know what? I'm a good guy now, and I'm gonna go and save. I'm gonna go save Spider-Man. And then you get killed off like 10 minutes later. It's like, what the fuck were you supposed to do?
Yeah,
And then yeah,
yeah.
Venom was just so
But
shoehorned in. I'm just like, what the fuck?
I would say about Venom slash Eddie Brock in this movie, the actor Topher Grace, which played as Venom slash Eddie Brock, I would say he did really good playing as Eddie Brock, but not Venom.
Yeah, I
I
think I
feel
think
like
he was okay as Eddie because it was kind of like that douchebag kind of like
that
role.
jerky type.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, as soon as you inject Venom into him, you're like, would you just fucked it now because now you have this douchebag character playing a kooky douchebag villain. Like, there's not really that much
Yeah.
difference between his, how he was before and how he was now. And again, it was just studio execs that were just like, we want Venom, we want Venom. And it's like, fuck it, I don't gotta put Venom in this now. So, yeah, I feel like that it's just, there's way too many characters for this film to even be good. But if you focus really on, like, certain aspects of it, it's a really good Spider-Man movie. It's just hindered by a over complex plot and way too many characters and cringy ass scenes that it kind of does hinder it a bit and does become my least favorite out of the trilogy. But
Yeah.
it's so far not my least favorite Spider-Man movie, which we'll get to in this review.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, with all of that backstory shit out of the way, let's get into The Amazing Spider-Man, which was released on July 3rd of 2012 and was met with pretty divisive opinions when it came out, which we'll get to why those may be, you know, accountable throughout this review, because there is a lot that happened behind the scenes in terms of cutscenes and straight up lying to the audience. But again, we'll mention that as the review goes on. So this was made with a budget of around $230 million. Domestically, it made about $260 million, and worldwide it made over $750 million. So it was pretty profitable worldwide, but domestically it barely made its budget back. And I feel like, again, that what kind of hindered it was the reviews that came out around the time, where basically they were just like some people were like, "Well, this was actually a pretty good Spider-Man movie," while others just thought it was a boatload of shit. I I'm kind of indifferent about it, if that makes sense. But we'll talk about it, my opinions on it further. Um, so, Matt, what was your experience watching, or what was your history with The Amazing Spider-Man?
Okay. Now with the Amazing Spider-Man 1, I think it was alright. I think it was good. I like it's not as like really, really good, like compared to Toby's movies, but I feel like it was just alright. I think it was good.
Okay, so if we're gonna go straight into that, I thought this movie was boring as fuck, and
That is true. Yeah, I
like
would say that.
I think the thing about this movie for me is that it just feels so unnecessary as a Spider-Man fan that not even 5 years, no, barely 5 years after we got the last installment to Toby's series, Sony is like, "Oh yeah, we're rebooting Spider-Man." Why? It did not. It feel it feels like that they were about to lose the rights to Spider-Man, and they were like, "Well, no, we need to kind of hold on to this property, so we need to make another Spider-Man movie." Well, we can't get Sam Raimi back because he just fucking left Spider-Man. So what are we gonna do now? Why not just reboot him? It's been like 5 years since you actually did a Spider-Man movie, and already you want to reboot him. It's like doing a reboot to Batman only in less amount of time. Oh, fuck me. I just fuck movie studios. Anyway, so basically, what the point I'm trying to make here is that it was too soon to make a reboot, and I feel like that's what's hindering this movie really for me, is that it was way too early to do a reboot, and yet Sony was just like, we need to make money off of Spider-Man, but Sam Raimi's out, so we have no other choice but to do a reboot, and now we're here. But again, we'll go into my complaints as we go along. So, the story for this film should be pretty standard for a Spider-Man movie, but abandoned by his parents and raised by his aunt and uncle, teenager Peter Parker, played in this timeline by Andrew Garfield, is trying to sort out who he really is and exactly what his feelings are for his crush Gwen Stacy, played by Emma Stone. When Peter finds a briefcase that belongs to his father, he pursues a quest to solve his parents' disappearance. His search takes him to Oscorp and the lab of Dr. Kirk Connors, played by, I believe you say Reese Ifans, I think that's how you pronounce his name, sending him on a collision course with Connor's alter ego, the Lizard. So, there's a lot to talk about with this movie, but in a very short amount of time. Um, so, the whole thing about, okay, to start from the beginning, when I started watching this, I was like, okay, we're going into a Spider-Man movie. I'm gonna hope to God that this is better than 3. That's all I'm asking for. I don't need it to be a good movie or even a great movie. I just want it to be better than 3. And immediately off the bat, we start with this young kid who's playing hide and seek apparently with his parents. I'm like, the fuck kind of movie am I watching now? Am I watching Spider-Man or a horror movie? Like, what the fuck am I watching? But of course, I am watching a Spider-Man movie, and as this thing goes on, we find out that someone had apparently broken into Peter's father's office and was trying to look for some important documents, which at this point we don't know what they are, but I think they might be important to the plot. I honestly kind of lost interest in that fucking folder halfway through the movie, and they never brought it up again. So they're looking after this information, and the parents are like, okay, well, clearly our house is not safe. So let's take Peter to, to our relatives, and then fucking ditch him to go on on a plane to God knows where, and just say bye to him. Okay, sure. So after that 5 to 10 minute, I don't even think it was 10 minutes, like at least 5 minute prologue, we just kind of abruptly cut to teenager Peter Parker, played by Andrew Garfield. And I'm going to get this out of the way right now. I have nothing against Andrew's interpretation as Spider-Man. I think he was really good. Was he as good as
Yeah,
Tobey
same.
Maguire? No. But that doesn't mean it was a bad performance. The thing that fucking
Yeah,
irritates me about his performance is that, especially in this film, I can't buy the fact that he's a nerdy teenager. He is way
true.
too good looking to be a nerdy teenager.
Yeah,
Whereas in
and
the
way too
Raimi
cool as
films,
well.
yeah, it's like if in the Raimi films, you kind of felt like Toby was actually kind of like that nerdy kind of Peter Parker.
Yeah,
But in
very
this
comic
film,
accurate.
oh, go on. I was gonna say something, but go
I
on.
was gonna say like very comic accurate as well for Toby, because
Yeah.
like you have that nerdy type, but
Mm,
obviously with Andrew, he's very cool looking, and I just don't really see that. But I mean, his performance with Spider Man, I think it was really good because
yeah.
the way, because like with Spider Man, like he has like those funny quips,
Yeah.
and Andrew does that,
Hmm.
but Toby doesn't really have that for his Spider Man. But I mean, I guess. Well, I guess that's what I kind of like about Andrew Spider Man is that he has like those funny quips. But yeah, I think his performance was great as Spider Man too.
Yeah. I think overall his performance is good, and I feel motivated to keep on watching him. It's just the thing is that for like the first like half an hour to an hour of the movie, we're supposed to buy him as this nerdy Peter Parker, and to me personally, I don't see that. I see this guy who, when he walks his locker, there's gonna be 20 chicks chilling in front of his locker trying to bone him. Like, there is no fucking way that this guy is a nerdy Peter Parker. Like, I can't buy that. So,
Yeah,
and this is gonna become more of an inherent issue when we move on to the second film, but that's for next time. It's just that overall, I think that his performance is kind of uneven, if that makes sense. I think he does a really good Spider-Man, but a kind of crap Peter Parker, if that makes
yeah,
sense. So we obviously get introduced to this nerdy Peter Parker, and like I said, I don't really buy the fact that he's a nerdy Peter Parker. And then, like, when he's getting bullied by Flash, it's kind of like, like, why? Because it's like he doesn't really have any of those nerdy traits. And it's
Oh
only
yeah.
and it's like only like 10 minutes into the movie where he already is getting the pit like the getting his ass kicked by Flash because he okay, this was one thing that because I watched like the first 10-15 minutes of it with our with one of our friends Paul. And this was something that me and him kind of like pointed out and we're like, what the fuck? It's the one scene where we after he's taking stalker pictures of Gwen, okay, sure. He looks over and he sees this crowd of people like chanting, and we're all like, "What the fuck?" We cut over to it, and it's Flash digging this kid's face into vegetables, some kind of lunch
Yeah,
food,
yeah, like something. Yeah.
and we he walks over and he's and Flash is like, "Take a picture of this, Peter," and he's like, "Nah, I'm good." And then after he yells it, Peter just says, "Put him down, Eugene," and all of a sudden he fucking pops off and he drops the kid, right? And he just goes over and sucker punches Peter. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like, we go,
I
like,
know.
not even within a minute, we go from Flash sticking his kid's face into food, practically forcing him to eat it. And then we have Peter yelling out Eugene, which apparently triggers him. And then Flash just beats the shit out of him. Like, there is no, like, at least in the Raimi, again, in the Raimi films, at least you have some, like, he was already bullying kind of Peter at that point, and the scene that caused them to the fight was actually because, like, Peter flew a whole lunch tray at him, so you can understand
Yeah.
why he got pissed at it, but in this film, all he did to Peter was, what, throw a basketball at his head and kind of, like, jump scare him a bit, and then Peter calls him by his real name, and he's like, "Oh, you motherfucker," and then beats the shit out of him. Like, there is no, like, substance to this scene. Like, they could have easily just, like, cut it out, but of course we have to add this scene instead of scenes that are on, which I'll try and discuss if I remember it. But yeah, so after that, we we cut to a classroom, and Peter and Gwen start talking and talking throughout, and you know this is admittedly, if I can say anything positive about this film besides the acting and stuff like that, this is absolutely, without a doubt, one thing that this film did way better than any of the Tobey Maguire films. An actual love relationship between Peter
Love
and the love
interest. Yep.
interest, like an actual good relationship.
Yeah.
Because in the Raimi films, all that all that MJ's there for is to say really weird ass shit, get captured, and then get saved by Spidey. Whereas in this film, Gwen actually has a fucking brain, and she's a scientist. Like, holy shit, you actually do something instead of just sit there and gaze at Peter. So I'm like, and the dialogue between them is really good, like actual good relationship banter that I thought that I would have at least gone in the third one, but obviously we didn't. So that is at least one thing that I can point out as a positive for either of these films, is that the relationship aspect of the story is way better than any of the Maguire films could ever handle. But
Yeah.
admittedly, that was kind of tested for me at the beginning, where after the fight, she barely even sticks up for Peter, and yet in the classroom scene, right after, she goes, "I think the thing that you did out there was very brave." Bullshit, you thought that. You didn't even help the fucker up. You didn't even say, "Oh, are you alright?" You just walked away. Like, oh fuck. So, I admittedly I was kind of iffy about that, but then obviously as the story goes on, the relationship kind of blossoms, and it's like, okay, now I can actually buy this relationship a bit more. But as the film goes on, we obviously kind of learn some things about Peter's parents and how they kind of especially Peter's father. He kind of had some shady shit going on, but that doesn't really get established on in this film. All we know is that all we've learned from this film is that he worked with a guy called Dr. Kirk Connors, who we would go on and later find out about this movie. But they were both working on this serum or formula to kind of try and cure all like diseases out in the world. But after the break-in at the beginning, he kind of just left, and then Kirk Connors never talked to Uncle Ben or Aunt May ever again. So that's pretty much all that we got in this film. But I have the feeling that we're gonna get a lot more established lore about Richard Parker in the next film. But
Yeah.
I think that you know, and yeah, then obviously we get introduced to Dr. Kirk Connors, who I was a bit upset finding out that they never really got to the original Kirk Connors as the Lizard in the Raimi films, because I feel like that like how would they would have established how would they would have done his character as the Lizard would have been a very good aspect to go from, because I think that the Kirk Connors in the Raimi films was actually really good, even though he obviously didn't really make an
Yeah.
appearance in the first one. But I feel like that he actually
Yeah.
had a very kind of good kind of mentor kind of aspect to Peter. Whereas in this film, they introduce him as a scientist, and he obviously has the one arm, and they establish him as like this actually kind of good kind of person, or scientist at least. And as the film goes on, we kind of start to learn more that he kind of like lost his arm in the war, and he always trying to find a way to bring it back. And with Peter's help, kind of forging this serum, he could actually find a way to actually grow his arm back. But the consequences of that is turn into a giant ass fucking lizard. So
Yeah.
it's I feel like that they could have had a good character arc with him, and they kind of do in the film itself. It's just not well established. It's like they have so much character development for his backstory and how he wants to we understand why he wants to do it, but then we never really get like a like we understand why he wants to do it, but we don't get like a good explanation as to why. Like, okay, yeah, he lost his arm in the war. Okay, you could probably establish that a little bit more, or at least give us a motivation to actually be like, oh, okay, well now we have a bit of sympathy for him, which is like, agreeingly, it is there. It's just I feel like it's just not well established in the film itself. And that could very well be down to the fact that this film has a lot of deleted scenes that were cut out of the final film. And a couple of them are actually kind of really kind of focal to the point. And one of them could bring up right now is that there's a deleted scene that he actually does have a son. And we actually do get an explanation as to why he wants to grow back his arm so that he can actually hold his son like a proper father. And I'm like, well, why the fuck didn't they add that into the movie? Like, the deleted scene is maybe about 2 minutes at most in a, like, 2 hour, 11-minute movie. Like, why couldn't they just add that? And trust me, that's there's a bigger deleted scene that we'll bring up later that really kind of fucks up the plot and really causes the major kind of plot hole as to kind of the circumstances of it, but we'll get to that. So obviously we have Kirk Connors and Peter kind of developing the serum, but Connors' kind of boss was like, because we get established intermediate throughout the film that the leader of Oscorp, Norman Osborn, is apparently dying from. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even think they actually ever established what he's dying from. They just say, "Oh yeah, the Norman Osborn is dying. Have you gotten the serum ready? Like, have you gotten this formula?" And he's like, "Well, no, we haven't perfected it yet." It's like, all right, you only have like a couple more days to do it. And if they finally get it done, and it's like, well, they haven't tested it on humans. So the boss kind of, says like, all right, well, if, you're taking way too long to do this, the serum's ours now. So he's like, all right, well, fuck you. I'm going to inject the serum into myself and see how it works. And it does actually work. He grows his arm back and, it goes well. But as mentioned before, the side effect is that you turn into a gigantic green fucking lizard. And you kind of just cause mayhem throughout the city, to which Peter has to figure out some way to try and figure out how to stop him, which of course leads to him building the Spider-Man suit. Now, I know
Yep.
I didn't really talk about this much when I was talking about the Raimi films, but I feel like that the Spider-Man suit in the Raimi films is the best live-action suit that we could possibly have for Spider-Man. And
Agreed. Agreed.
they did little tweaks about it throughout the films, but overall, it still maintained the same. This version of the suit is actually a good step up, and this is how I feel like they would have modernized it. Because, admittedly, while I do love the Raimi suit, it feels kind of like 90s 2000-esque. So that kind of does date the movies a bit. But this is the suit that I think that would be a good evolution from the Raimi suits. Like, if you had to modernize the Raimi suits, this is a good way to do it. And, I actually personally really do enjoy it. It just kind of sucks that we don't really have any good shots of it. I think we honestly have like one or two shots in this film where we see the suit in daylight, and it's kind of quick, kind of cuts,
Yeah.
or like a really far away shot that we barely get to see it in its glory. And the other 90% of the
Yeah.
time we see the suit, it's pretty dark outside, and the colors are pretty muted on the thing anyway, so it's kind of hinders it a bit. But overall, I do really, really enjoy this interpretation of the suit. What did you think about the
Yeah.
suit in this version?
In this movie, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like the
yeah.
suit in this movie.
Well, we'll talk about the suit in Spider-Man 2 when we get to that.
Yeah. Yeah. But this suit, I think it was all right, but like I think Everett could probably agree like with me on this. I just don't like the eyes, which are a dark yellow kind of. I don't really like
Okay,
the
yeah,
eyes. That's like the
I
only
can
thing
see
I don't like
that.
about the suit.
Although, granted,
But
I
yeah,
feel
but
like
but,
that you
but
don't really
everything else
see
though was good.
them. You don't really see them as yellow that much throughout the film. I think it's only when he's building the suit itself is that when you really see them yellow. And I think like one other shot, because mostly it's like the reflectiveness of like the city around him, like the lights and stuff that reflect off
Yeah.
the eyes and kind of give it that kind of like black aesthetic to it. So that didn't really bother me, but yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. I do when the shots that make it yellow, yeah, I don't really like it. But like I said, most of the time you don't really see it in kind of like that lighting that pulls out the kind of the yellow aspect to it. So I think overall that's honestly the kind of like an
Yeah.
aspect that I can just kind of push to the side and be like, I can enjoy this. Um,
Yeah.
but we obviously have that bridge scene in this film, which is rip off of the scene in the first one. So it kind of just felt like retreading a bit. Although,
Yeah.
it feels like that they could have taken the story in an interesting direction. Okay, I know I'm probably gonna sound fucked up by saying this. It could have gone in an interesting direction if they let the kid die in this film. Like maybe like he's like guilt ridden about that throughout like the entire movie. Like
Oh
maybe they could have had
yeah.
that as like a subplot. So but the fact that he does save him, it's like, oh, granted, yeah, I'm not saying promote child suicide because that's not at all what I'm trying to say here. I'm just saying that for the story, it probably would have helped it being a little more kind of what's the word, kind of like three-dimensional, if that makes sense, and not have it be a total rip-off of the first movie scene where you know there's a carriage over a bridge and it's about to fall and yeah. I think okay, this is another complaint that I honestly do have about the film is that there are so many scenes are either exact copies or are or exact copies of a scene that you would have seen in the first Raimi film, or are kind of versions of it that you can still recognize it as being copycats, and it takes me out of the movie because I'm like watching the movie, I'm like, that's from the Raimi film, you just fucking copied it, and then I just keep on pointing them out, and I'm just like, this is not what a movie should be doing to me. I should be enjoying the experience and not being like, oh, I can notice that from the first one that they kind of remade. So I'm just like, it irritates me. Um, I mean, grandly, if we're gonna talk about that, fucking Uncle Ben dying, you know,
Oh yeah.
same, basically in the
Hmm.
exact same scenario as the Raimi film, because I feel like that,
Yeah,
I would have been
technically.
fine with Uncle Ben dying. It's just you practically did it in the exact same fucking way, right? He dies to a gunshot, like it's which, by the way, I feel like that Ben Parker, played by Martin Sheen, I think he does really good. As Ben Parker, and Sally Field as Emily.
Yeah.
I think they both do really good. It's just that I feel like that Martin Sheen is kind of wasted in this movie. Like they kind of just give him they basically give him expositional dialogue where he has to kind of like let the story he's kind of like the role that's like, all right, let's keep the story going and going, and I'm just like, can we actually just have like some good character development with you? And then, oh, you're fucking dead. Well, sorry, Ben. I guess you're gonna have to try next time. So, yeah. But yeah. So, yeah, obviously, like I said, we have, Peter and Kurt kind of working on the serum. And then obviously, Kurt tries the serum on himself, and like, he does grow the arm back, but again, he turns into the lizard. And as the movie goes on, we kind of get this developing relationship between Gwen and Peter, as Peter's slowly trying to figure out who the lizard is, as even though we obviously know it's Kirk Connors. And there is one moment in the film where it's a whole sequence of events that I'm just pissed off at, and it's like multiple kind of like plot holes in a row that if they just had one deleted scene and they could have fixed it immediately. And I'm gonna try and go through this rapid fire so that we don't make this too long. But basically, Peter, after he slowly figures out that Kirk Connors is the lizard, he goes into the sewers to try and take a picture of himself as Spider-Man. Why in the sewers? Anyway. So, so yeah, he tries to take a picture of himself as Spider-Man, and he has a short encounter with the lizard, and he leaves his fucking camera behind with a Property of Peter Parker sticker on it. Why in the fuck would you have a sticker like that on something that could easily track you? And I say this because a 10-year-old yellow person from a famous cartoon show did the exact same fucking thing. And if you guys don't know, I'm referencing The Simpsons here. Basically, you're basically pulling a Bart Simpson here. How the fuck do you manage that, Peter? So now, Kirk Connors knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man and attacks him at the school, which admittedly is a pretty cool action scene. But
Yeah.
after a
Hmm.
while of them fighting each other, the lizard just leaves. Like, huh? Like, why did he stop? Like, we heard the cops outside, but that shouldn't really affect him that much. Like, why the fuck did he leave? So, here's where the deleted scene comes in. Basically, in the final film, we see, the shot of the library where the lizard is gone, and Peter starts hearing noises as he leaves and tracks it to the bathroom. Now, in the deleted scene, we see that Kirk Connors actually changed back into the lizard. So we have this whole scene in the sewers at Kirk Connor's lab in the sewers, where he explains why he took the serum and changed it to the lizard. Then the boss, Connor's boss, shows up and knocks out Peter, and asks why did the serum work on Peter but not Kurt? Or no, actually no, I fucked up the order. So basically, he explains why he changed it to the lizard. Then he changes into the lizard in front of Peter, as the boss shows up and knocks out Peter, and then asks, obviously, why did the serum work on Peter and not on Kurt? Kurt kills the boss and then escapes from the sewers. Why the fuck was that scene cut out? That explains like so many plot holes throughout the entire movie, and yet they cut it out. For what reason, I honestly do not know. Luckily, though, the deleted scenes are on the Blu-ray, no matter which one you have. Because I have the original, I think 2013, 2012 release. So the deleted scenes are on the Blu-ray, and I'm sure you can easily find them online. The reason, like I said, the reason why they cut it out, I have no fucking idea why. My only guess is that time, because it probably would have gone for like 2.5 hours, and the studio was like, no, we need to shorten this down a bit, so cut. Even though, like I said, like the scene earlier with his son, and this scene would have been great to actually kind of have in the movie as character development, but nope. And this kind of goes along with the thing that I was mentioning earlier about how the trailers kind of lied to the audience, to its audience goers. Basically, what the trailers were hinting at was basically, you are going to be getting the untold story. What was the untold story? We don't know, but that got fans hyped for it. As like, okay, this is a different universe, but we'll finally get the answers to questions I've been wondering for years. And yet, when the movie came out, we didn't get those answers. In fact, we got more questions than anything else, which is why I feel like that the responses to the film initially were really mixed at the time, because they didn't know, they wanted to know, like, what were the secrets, what were the answers, and yet they never got them. And it's something that the sequel will try and elaborate on and fail poorly, which we'll get to next time. But it feels like that this film had, it had a good idea. It had a good script. And yet they realized, oh shit, we're running at 2.5 hours. We need to cut, get rid of a whole bunch of scenes, have this at least running at a 2 hour, 10-minute running time. And that means that everyone can see it. No, that's not really what we wanted. What we wanted was what you promised us in the fucking trailer. But, yeah. And, people may say, like, maybe it's not as bad. Maybe, the theatrical cut does explain him. And it does, but it's very shoddy as to how they did it. Basically, in the theatrical cut, in the version that we got, Peter is walking through the sewers and calls MJ, basically explaining that he needs to have basically a formula to kind of reverse the effects. Peter then somehow miraculously comes upon Connor's sewer lab, where the video logs that he's been recording are miraculously on one monitor, and his dastardly plan is on another monitor, being shown to Peter. That's how you get your explanation, kids. This movie's a fucking mess. It's a good mess, but it's a fucking mess. But yeah, so obviously after we get shown Kirk Connor's plan, where basically he wants to, because he's developed this kind of smoke that has the formula in it. So basically, he wants to use the Gennady device, which we got shown earlier, to kind of to spread the serum across the population of New York and change them into lizards. Okay? Sure, I'll go along with that. So, as Peter is making his way over to Oscorp, we have the police kind of catch up to him, take him down, but then obviously Peter being fucking Spider-Man, he takes them all out, and the captain's daughter, who we got a few scenes before, which is ironically Gwen Stacy's father, played by Dennis Leary, figures out who Spider-Man really is. And it's the guy who his daughter is dating. Then he gets shot at. Well, no, this is something I have to point out again. There's a scene way early, like his first attempt at actually being Spider-Man, where he stops a car thief. A cop on a motorcycle pulls up and pulls out a pistol. Point blank range, shoots at him 4 times. Spider-Man dodges all of them, which makes sense because he's fucking Spider-Man. And yet, here, he shoots a web, starts flying, or he starts, gliding across. This one cop just shoots one bullet and hits him in the leg. Now, I've seen a lot of people criticize, like, how the fuck did Spider-Man not dodge out of the way for that? Or like, how did the cop hit him? Blah, blah, blah. I can see why people argue about it, but I can put it down to the fact that this is still early in Peter's Spider-Man career. So maybe he hasn't, granted, if you say that, then it's like, well, then why the fuck did he dodge the bullets earlier and yet not here? And I'm like, that's the only reasonable explanation I can actually put behind it, is that, it's still early in his career, so there's maybe some things that he's not really immune to. And because obviously by the second film, we see him, swinging around and dodging bullets. So I think by that point, he's kind of adapted to it and be like, all right, clearly this is a skill that I need to improve on. And then by the next film, he's like, all right, I know how to do this now. So that's my only possible explanation for it. So, but yeah. So, yeah, obviously, and then, like, if that wasn't bad enough, the bridge scene from earlier, we see that this Peter saved this kid, right? And the fucking father, who is, by the way, played by C. Thomas Howell, one of my favorite childhood actors, basically, played Ponyboy in The Outsiders. He also played a role in Red Dawn and stuff like that. Still love him to this day. Like, Hitcher, great. That father, right? I thought he was just a one-time, quick cameo, like saying, like, oh, basically, I'm C. Thomas Howell. Okay, I wouldn't be fine with that. But that fucking dad just so happened to be a fucking construction worker who gathers up all his men to angle a whole bunch of cranes for Spider-Man to have a clear shot towards Ars Cup. What the fuck? Bruh, that is coincidence 101 right fucking there. Like, the dad that his son got saved by Spider-Man was like, oh, Spider-Man's in trouble. Let me just get all my men, have them angle cranes to this one particular building, and have Spider-Man get an easy shot over to the building.
Yeah.
Oh, God. The more that you realistically think about this film, the more your brain starts to hurt. Because it's like, you really think about it, and it's like, well, then this happened, but then this would happen. It's like, just shut up and don't think about anything, because you're going to hate this film more and more. But, yeah, so he reaches over the Oscorp. He has his final battle with the Lizard, with the assistance of George Stacy, who, gets put in a situation where it's just him and the Lizard, and he gets stabbed by the Lizard. Couldn't see that one coming. Especially with the fact that you had a scene where you meet him and have dinner with his family. You're asking to fucking die at that point. I'm just saying. But yeah. So the captain gets fucking stabbed. And Peter has enough time to get the antidote in and cure everyone who was affected by the serum. The captain fucking dies. And basically he's like, oh, Peter, that you're gonna have so many enemies, and I want you just to do one thing: just stay away from my daughter. Typical cliche dad time bullshit. So
Yeah.
Peter agrees, and then they have the funeral, and next day at school we come to the final scene, which I heard actually caused a lot of controversy, but I'm actually personally fine with it. Where the teacher's like, all right, well, another target for Mr. Parker. And he's like, all right, I won't do it again. And the teacher's like, well, don't make promises you can't keep. And he just turns to Quinn and he just goes, those are the best kinds. And I'm like, did this motherfucker break a promise with a dying dad? That's fucking awesome!
Yeah.
You fucking yes! Like, fuck you, George Stacy, you bitch!
Oh my god.
But yeah. So, yeah. That is pretty much the movie as a whole. Before we get on to the fun facts and the score and shit like that, what did you think about the characters overall in The Amazing Spider-Man? Besides Peter, because we already covered him.
Well, throughout like the side characters, I think the Lizard was an interesting villain
Yeah.
because unfortunately they well obviously you guys know that Spider-Man 4 for the Raimi films has been unfortunately have been canceled, and apparently I think Dylan Baker was the Dr. Connors in Toby's universe. He was actually going to be the next villain in Spider-Man 4, which unfortunately we did not get, but it's like to this day, it's still freaking broken my heart that we don't
I'm
have
still
Spider-Man
livid that
4.
we did not get that, but there's nothing
But yeah,
to really do about it.
but yeah, like it would have been really interesting to see his character as the villain in Spider-Man 4, which we have never gotten. But with this Dr. Connors though, it was very interesting. So I think the villain was pretty good. Gwen W love interest. I think she has the best interest out of all of the out of all the girls in the I believe in Toby's movies and Tom's movies, I think she has the best love interest.
Yeah.
Especially for Peter. So I would say that. Is there any other characters?
Well, yeah, we have Ben Parker and Aunt May, who were played by Martin Sheen
Oh yeah.
and Sally Field. I think they were honestly really good.
Yeah. I think the Uncle Ben was good in the Amazing Spider-Man one, but I don't think Cliff Robertson, which plays as the other Uncle Ben from Toby's universe, I think he tops like the best Uncle Ben. I think.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Like I said, I feel like that Martin Sheen's interpretation of Ben Parker is kind of wasted. Like they don't really.
Yeah.
It feels like they with Cliff Robertson's performance. It actually feels like that he is like an actual uncle to him, and he actually feels like you actually feel emotional about it when he dies. Where it's like in this film, it feels like more exposition than anything. And it's just like, all right, I got to give you this.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not like outright. Oh, here's a piece of information. It's more like like here, here's something I want to talk to you about through exposition. I'm just like, really? Like you could have done so much with his character, and then not even halfway through the movie, fucking dead. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
hope you have a next shot next time, or did you actually? I don't even fucking know. Because yeah, spoiler alert, I haven't seen Homecoming or any of the Tom Holland ones besides No Way Home. And that's already going to start a war in the comments section. I can already see that shit coming. It's just like, I did the Tom Holland ones, well, fuck you.
Oh
But
my
trust
god.
me, guys, I will be watching them, obviously, for the reviews. So it's not like I'm going to go, be like, oh yeah, I'm never watching them. So, yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, I think Sally Field does play a decent Aunt May in my book. But yeah, I think just in general, I think it's an alright movie. I mean, it's not my favorite out of all the Spider-Man movies, but
not by
it's
fucking far.
Yeah. And I'm not going to even talk about the Amazing Spider-Man 2 yet, which will be
Oh
soon.
my god, God. Oh no. But yeah, but yeah, before we actually get on to my final thoughts about it, some fun things I actually have to mention is that during breaks during the shoot is that Andrew Garfield would actually walk around New York City and play basketball with some of the locals in his Spider-Man costume, which I'm like, okay, that's sick. That's
Oh
sick.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
Toby did that, but you gotta give Garfield some props that he was like, you know what, I'm gonna be in character. I'm gonna walk around the scene and be like, hey guys, I'm
Yeah.
Spider-Man. I'm cool.
Yeah, that was awesome of him to do that.
And then this is something I did not even know about. Um, but apparently Andrew Garfield himself requested the song Pure Imagination from the original Willy Wonka film to be played. I think during the sequence when I think it's when he's making like a suit for the first time. I think I'm gonna have to look back on it, but um, I was like, wait, Pure Imagination was in this film? I do not fucking remember that at all. But yeah. So and then music, because this is something that I'm gonna mention this. Oh wait, hold on, I found it. Yeah, Andrew Garfield requested that the song "Pure Imagination" from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory be played when filming the otherwise silent scene in which Peter goes into the web harvesting room with the spiders. So basically, yeah, that one scene where he's in Oscorp, and he is kind of looking around and basically um like looking at the spiders like, ooh, look at these little things. And yeah, then he kind of sets off like a alarm thing, and it's like, yeah, and just dump all these fucking things on him. So yeah, I never knew that, surprisingly enough. And
Yeah.
oh, okay, your camera's kind of loading for me, but as long as they can hear you, I think it's fine for now.
Yeah, like my Discord like bugged out for a moment.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if you know this, Russell, but like another fun fact, the actor that was the cash the register thief from Toby's films,
Okay.
the guy that who we thought that killed Uncle Ben,
Oh
but
yeah.
apparently was Sandman. He was actually in a scene. I think
Oh.
just one scene in the Amazing Spider-Man 1,
Oh, okay.
which was interesting.
I did not see that actually. I'm gonna have to look back on it. Um, but yeah, so now we're gonna be talking about the music, and while I will admit the the scores for the first two Raimi films, I feel like they were kind of average at best, with the theme being actually pretty good. Uh, although I will admit though, I don't think that the Raimi theme that was used in the films themselves it was pretty good, but the theme that they used during the teaser trailer for the original Spider-Man for the original like teaser trailers and trailers for Spider-Man, that theme is kick ass. Um, which I don't know if you've heard those themes, which I'm gonna have to play you after we're done with this. But
Yeah,
yeah, but I think
yeah, I'm gonna
overall
have
the
to like listen to
scores
that.
and for the first two Raimi films are kind of meh. Spider-Man 3 score, on the other hand, is actually my favorite out of all of the Raimi films, which sucks because that's
Really,
the only one that has not gotten a complete soundtrack release yet. It has
really,
the thing about the Spider-Man 3 score is that it has a way more gothic kind of tone to it, which really works for Spider-Man 3. And the new films that Christopher Young contributed to the film itself was actually really good, which makes sense considering the fact he worked on fucking Hellraiser. So gothic themes, you basically bring him aboard. Um, but obviously they need a new composer because Danny Elfman had basically an agreement during the second film where he had a bad time on it, and he was basically just like, all right, well, you're not going to use any of my themes. And obviously, since that this is a reboot, they had to make a new theme and new score. So they hired the late James
yeah,
Horner, who you guys are fans of my channel. I've mentioned him a few times. For him, since he's composed the music for Star Trek 2 and 3, and for Aliens as well. And this the score for this film I think is pretty good um overall, but the theme for this film, if I had to go for movie themes for between Toby and Andrew, Andrew beats him flat out. Like there's no doubt about it. His theme is awesome. But if you take the teaser trailer
Really?
theme for the 2002 Spider-Man movie, I think that one's better. But if we're talking about solely the themes from the movies themselves, Andrew's theme is better because it has that kind of
Really?
like it feels more like a superhero theme than anything else. Whereas you know it feels like that the Tobey Maguire theme feels like something that you would have seen in like a late era Batman sequel from like the 90s. If Danny Elfman was still composing for those films. Whereas Andrew's films, I hear that music and I think Spider-Man. Like I think Spider-Man when I hear that music. Along with again, like I said,
I'm
the the
surprised.
the, the trailer music for the Toby's films. But yeah. But yeah, I think overall I think the
Wow.
score is pretty good, but that theme is fucking kick ass. What did you think about the score for the Amazing Spider-Man?
I think it was decent, but like I'm gonna have to go with the like with the complete opposite. Because every time when I hear
Really?
Toby's theme, I just think it's so yeah, I just think it's so heroic.
I, don't know, I
To
can
me,
understand
to me,
that, but
that makes it Spider Man.
I think that me personally, I think I prefer Andrew's theme over Toby's. But it's like basically saying that like I'm trying to think of a good comparison. It's like basically saying that the '89 Batman theme was better than the 2022 Batman theme. Like I think that the
Yeah,
2022 Batman theme was really good, but
yeah.
I just have to prefer the '89 one over that. War number two in the comments. Here I fucking come. But yeah,
Oh my god.
no, because I have kind of a thing with some of my friends online that basically that I prefer the '89 one over the 2022 one, and everyone is like, bro, the 2022 one is best. The fuck is your problem? I'm like, no, it's this one. So yeah, I already know I'm gonna get that war in the comments section.
I mean, for the 2022 one, it sounds more like a Darth Vader
Yeah,
type of
but I guess that
score,
kind of
kind
really
of.
does go for that interpretation of Batman if you really do think about it.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much about it. So my final thoughts on the Amazing Spider-Man. It's a difficult thing because on the one hand, I want to like this movie. I want to like this movie better than 3. But the problem is that this film is just so kind of boring to me that I can't
Yeah.
really get motivated with it. Even though I like Andrew's interpretation of Peter, I love Emma Stone's interpretation of Gwen. It's way fucking better than anything we got in Spider-Man 3. um, and I think that the Lizard could have been an interesting villain. It's just that the story itself is kind of a retread of what we got previously, and the villain, even though it is a good villain that I wanted to see established, it wasn't he wasn't like established enough. And I feel like that they could have done a lot more
Yeah.
with this film, but they just didn't do that much. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to give this film a D because, like I said, it just feels underdeveloped. Whereas I feel like that if I had to be in a pinch to watch, okay, you could either watch Spider-Man 3 or The Amazing Spider-Man. I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I'm gonna go with Spider-Man 3. Like,
Same.
cause Because the thing is
Any
that
day
I
for
can
me.
at least laugh at that movie and say, "Oh, that moment shit," and that moment
Yeah,
shit.
like
But
yeah, it's more like yeah, like it's more enjoyable.
yeah,
And but I know it's cringe at some parts, but it's
yeah.
actually enjoyable and very funny at some parts.
Whereas this film, I feel like I'm falling asleep half of the time.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, at this current point in my Spider-Man series, this is going to be the weakest one for me because it is quite boring. And even though I have said this, I'm going to say this: I won't be returning to this film anytime soon. But it is something that I want to give a second rewatch, and I feel like I may, my thoughts on it may improve. But as of this recording, which is January 26th of 2023, I I just think that this film's boring, and I'd rather watch Spider-Man 3 any day, even though
Same.
I
100%
I fucking
agree.
cringe at emo Peter every single time. I just want to fucking die. But yeah, guys, that's my review of the Amazing Spider-Man. I really hope you guys enjoyed this, and I want to first I'll give a huge thank you to Matt for joining me in this review, and he will be joining me for the rest of the Spider-Man reviews, starting with this one up until No Way Home. So,
Yep.
super big thank you for joining me on this, and it was a blast, getting to work with you. And he does
Yep.
some amazing gaming content. I believe, like I said, today's the 26th that we're recording this. So later on today, he's gonna be doing
Yep.
some Mario Odyssey stuff, and yeah. So
Yep.
obviously, I'll put his link down in the description below, and I'll put his little name thing in the title. But I do highly recommend you guys check this channel out. And, as usual, follow me on my social media pages, my Facebook, my Instagram, my Twitter. That's when you guys get the info of when new videos are coming out. You can also follow me on my Letterboxd page where, I, give, little reviews beforehand when I do the reviews on, the films that I do. So, for example, I'll be doing written review for The Amazing Spider-Man. And obviously we'll be doing them for the upcoming sequels as we go through them. And I also have a Twitch page. I do some live streaming every once in a while on there, so you can catch me over there and do some gaming stuff over there as well. And that's pretty much about it. So yeah, guys, stay tuned next week for my review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Oh fuck me, man. It's gonna be a Batman and Robin all over again.
Oh my god.
Well, I
Damn.
hope you guys enjoy my pain as much Matt will enjoy it as well. Stay tuned for next week, guys, for
Yep.
my review and Matt's review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Live long and prosper.
Yep.
Out.